Hello viewers, this was a race that very much exceeded my expectations, the third round of the Manufacturers' Cup. Now, as you can probably tell by this sequence of clips, this really did kick off in many ways. This car getting reset after going backwards down the pit lane entry, as you do. Then we had this guy going through a Mercedes for about 10 minutes before finally getting the overtake done. Now, usually when I log on and see that it's Catalunya without the chicane, I'm not expecting too much. But with a bit of strategy thrown into the mix, this race actually turned out to be pretty good in and amongst all of the chaos. Now, let's jump into qualifying. As a quick recap, I am driving for Mercedes AMG, and the first rounds have been pretty good. But we're looking to go a little bit better here, as we think this is a good track for this car. So we're hoping for a good result. Now, my qualifying lap here, initially a 41.7. On my second lap here, I was actually more than a quarter of a second up. And so we were looking for a solid improvement. Qualifying in these events, these official Manufacturers' Cup events, usually pretty close. And therefore any 10th or even half a 10th that you can gain is always welcome. Now, coming through the final corner, and actually through the final sequence of corners, I somehow lost a massive chunk of time. See there, 3/10 lost, and actually don't improve upon my time. And upon finishing the final lap, no further improvement, so 13th on the grid it is. Obviously not ideal out of 16 cars. But what you're about to see is a masterclass in, I would say, some good driving, but also in going through the fire and flames and avoiding all the carnage and chaos, as we are often used to. So as the jets stream off into the distance, let's take a look further up the grid and go on board with the Portuguese driver here in 5th. So he's going to get dive bombed by the Nissan GTR from behind, and this is actually going to trigger a sequence of events which we can study throughout the course of this video. So the top 4 begin to pull away. We're back here in 13th, obviously with a lot of work to do, needing to move forward ideally in towards like the top 6, top 5 kind of area. But from here, that's not going to be easy. Lots of good drivers who are obviously quick in some good cars as well. The Lexus is solid, the GTR is solid, there's a BMW up there. There's actually another Mercedes just in front of me, which has proven to be a solid pick, I think. Heading down towards turn 6 at the bottom of the hill, just trying to pick a route in and amongst all the Lexuses, the Lexi. Don't know what the plural of Lexus is. Anyway, coming up the hill towards turn 9, we're going to skip forward slightly and go on board with the Renault up in 2nd, because this was so strange. He gets dive bombed by the BMW. I say dive bomb is actually, I think, a good move, but there's a bit of contact on the exit and it turned out to look a bit suspect, but we continue. The GTR goes through as well, and then suddenly this guy kind of forgets where he's going and turns right about a year too early. No idea what was going on, and then he's about to trigger a sequence of events here as he comes into the pit lane, and all the cars behind kind of bunch up and end up smashing into each other as the Renault goes in. And from my point of view, it looked like this. So we come through, and suddenly there's a blockade on the pit lane entry. What the hell? Like 3 people crashed in the pit lane. Now we can take a look at the Nissan GTR. This was pretty funny, as they get kind of bunched up there. Really awkward contact. The GTR gets spun around, tries the illegal move of reversing into the pit lane, to which the stewards say, "No thank you, sir, you must be reset onto the circuit." And he actually gets a 3-second penalty just to rub it in. So infinite amounts of time lost there. This was the view from the Ferrari behind. Now this guy got really unlucky because he kind of came in there as you like, but actually as a result of all of that gets himself a 5-second penalty. Yeah, explain that one to me. I'm not sure. Meanwhile, back with me, a rather more sedate pit lane entry and exit, no penalties to report of. I must say I got a little bit lucky perhaps with how far back I was, in the sense that the cars in front ghosted and so I was able to go through. Now, as you can see, this split strategy, we have one group there and one group here. Those who have pitted and those who haven't. Let's take a look with this Ferrari. Sat in 5th, up behind the Mercedes, as we continue lapping on, up in the top corner there. Now, the Ferrari actually started quite close to me on the circuit. It actually started just behind, and so we're aiming to hopefully stay in front of this car when eventually it goes in for its pit stop. Gets a half-second penalty there. Now, just to give you a bit of context, the strategy, you have to use the hard tyre and the medium. Most people using the hard tyre just for 1 lap or 2 laps as he actually hits the pit lane entry. People can't seem to go into the pit lane cleanly here. So more time lost for that guy. So we obviously did 1 lap of hard, and then we're going to do the rest of the race on the mediums. Some people saving the hard lap until the very end. And that's why we have the split groups with some people obviously having not stopped yet and then waiting for the end to do so. Now, beginning of lap number 3, we've got a couple of cars rejoining the circuit here. The Ferrari, there it is. After its misdemeanors on the pit lane entry, we actually are going to jump back ahead of them. So I'm in 10th. I started 13th. That's 3 positions so far. They're in a solid place. Obviously, we have another position to gain, which was the GTR, which got reset. That guy hasn't pitted just yet, but surely will, and we'll lose plenty of time. So on lap 3, I was a little bit worried about that big group behind. 5 cars within, well, 1.5 is the distance to the car immediately behind me. And so, you know, over the course of 18 laps that this race is, that is not an impossible gap to surrender. So we've got to be on it here, try to push forward, catch up with the Lexus. Now, let's take a look at this Genesis going into the pit lane. This guy actually gets it right, albeit with a bit of a slide, as we are aiming, hopefully, to get in front of this guy as well. In fact, you'll see what happens here, because as we come through the final corner, still in the wheel tracks of the Lexus in front, the Genesis gets his fresh set of tyres, off of the hards, onto the mediums for the rest of the race. And thankfully we are able to get in front of this guy as well. As you can see here, we're going to shoot by. And this guy's going to come out into the path of the group just behind me. And this was really crucial, I think. Well, not crucial, but helpful. As the Porsche then has to go around the outside. This kind of highlights, I think, to me, that because I had such a clean start, not getting involved in any of the contact, I'm now 2.8 seconds in front of that group. I'm not having to fight with them, and I've just got now a clear run in front. You know, taking a look at the track map on the bottom right of the screen, those cars are really in close contention with each other. 4, 5, 6 cars. And so we've got somewhat fortunate there to kind of avoid all the melee, all the carnage. No penalties as well to report of. And it just shows you, it translates into direct results in the sense that I'm now in 8th instead of 13th where I started. 5 positions already, and we're looking good to gain more, potentially. So this enters the sort of the next phase of this race, which is just trying to get your head down and put some nice consistent laps in. We're going to the end. No more pit stops needed from me, as we've already done one. So it's a case of trying to keep up with this Lexus, trying to put in some consistent laps, and trying to have a direct battle, in a sense, with the guys out in the lead of the race who have yet to pit. Coming through the final corner, just about 1.1 seconds off. Lexus a 42.0 there, so trying to settle in and get some 42s, and ideally move into the 41s a little bit later on as well. And as we go through the race, just trying to learn a little bit more about the car. Where can we gain more time? Where can we carry more speed into the corners? The AMG working pretty well. You might remember the first race at the Nordschleife where we had the nice strategy on the tyres, finishing second in that race. The car felt good around the Nordschleife. Then we went to the second race at Interlagos, where the car felt good, but it wasn't the best because of, I think, the slower corners on the track, and that really held me back there. I think at Catalunya, You know, of course there are some slow corners, but it's mostly medium speed and high speed, and I feel a lot more comfortable around here. The pace is looking pretty good at this point in time. Fastest lap of the race, a 41.5, and so only half a second off of that, which is pretty good at the moment. It's a good little battle, this. I think we're about evenly paced. Yeah, it's a really good matchup between the two of us. I came out of the pit lane pretty much this far behind the Lexus. I've not really been able to make many inroads into that gap, but that's not to matter right now. We have 13 more laps to try to do the damage. And for the time being, as I said, this phase of the race is really about churning out some consistent fast laps. And if that means the car in front is doing exactly the same, that's fine. Because let's not forget, we are racing a lot of the guys at the front who are yet to pit. Setting a 42.0 there, a couple of laps later, another 42.0, and in fact, 3 of the last 4, all 42.0s, and then a 41.895. The consistency is pretty good, and so I'm happy with that. And I'm just taking a look at the track map on the top right, because we have us 4 who are, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then you have the guys 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And it's the guys who are in 3rd and 4th who I genuinely think we have a really good chance of getting ahead of once they go for their pit stop towards the end of the race. So we have to be pretty mindful of that. The fact that we have to race the cars directly around us, aka the Lexus, but also those cars out in front. Into the hairpin we go. We're a 10th up. This has actually been a solid lap so far. The Lexus a little bit wide there. I did notice the Lexus was a little bit off in the middle sector, but I think it was slightly better than me through sector 1 and 3. And these are the things you kind of want to pay attention to. You never know what battle could happen in the future, and so it's always good to have a bit more knowledge about your rival. As we head through the final corner, carrying the speed onto the main straight, it's going to be our fastest lap of the race so far, 41.7, and we actually gained 3/10 against Pill GT there in front. Now the gap to the leader, actually you might have spotted there, went from, you know, a high 35 to a low mid 35. Over the course of these couple of laps, we've actually been gaining on first place. Not that I'm aiming to necessarily overhaul them and beat them, but it shows that our pace is good. Likewise here up against the Lexus, gaining a couple of tenths here in the middle sector as we just mentioned. And so things are going slightly our way now. Gap below 0.9 for the first time in a while. And this is lap 13. You know, the laps have been being churned away here. Lots of 42.0s, 42.1s. So we're doing all the right things. And things are just slowly beginning to come to us as the race is in its closing stages now. There's still 5 laps to go. You know, that's a good 9-10 minutes of racing. So plenty of work still to be done at this point. Coming through the final corner, 0.6 the gap. Midway through lap 14 and at the end of 14, this is about as close as I could kind of get before I would struggle to kind of keep right on this guy. As I mentioned, the dirty air not very helpful at this distance. So you get any closer than this and you kind of struggle for grip. And so you have to be really careful with how you drive when you get a little bit closer. So let's take a look at the cars in second and third. This is the Lexus up in third place, up behind the GTR, and take a look at the tyres. This guy's been really cooking that front left tyre. I don't know what this guy's technique is, but perhaps just driving a little bit too hard on the brakes into the right-handers and really cooking that front left. And he's really feeling that tyre wear, because this guy in second was quite a long way in front and he was actually really close to the leader at one point. So dropping off massively, gets a poor run out of the final corner onto the main straight. And this is going to be the Lexus coming through. And I'm not sure if I can get ahead of these two guys. You know, we said that we might be able to get ahead of third and fourth. Maybe even both of these guys, because now that they're fighting and losing time behind each other, there is a good chance we can jump the pair of them. Now, just as a recap of this guy's race, it was actually quite interesting. He started in 11th. And you can see here, he's just in front of me at this phase. This is the end of lap 1. We're just quickly recapping this guy's race. So he actually stayed out a little bit longer. He's starting on the medium tyre, so he's going to do his pit stop at the end. And then this was the really weird moment. This was lap 5. I went through this guy for a very lengthy overtake. I mean, they started inside each other at 8 minutes 12 on the timer, on the bottom left, if that doesn't sound too wrong. And then it took until 8 minutes 28 for them to be separated. So we've got a good 16-second overtake there, which you'd love to see. And then by lap 15, he had actually caught up with that Nissan GTR. So a good race, a good solid race from this guy. The pace, though, you see there, 42s for the most part. And I would say that my pace was actually, on the whole, a lot better. So it just shows you how qualifying can be super important. But I think in this instance, I probably will jump ahead of him because of the superior lap times. Just a couple of tenths per lap, but it does total a couple of seconds in the end. So it kind of highlights to me I just need to improve my qualifying, as I seem to be quicker than a lot of the guys in front of me who have just got a better qualifying lap, essentially. So, lap 17. Definitely catching up now. We're in 7th, but the cars in front are going to begin to go in for their pit stops at the end of this lap. This is the last chance. In fact, Kev goes in. And this is the closest I've been to the Lexus. This is the closest I've managed to get. And I do feel that either it's some pressure or this guy, his tyres are going off, as the top 3 go into the pit lane. That's the BMW, the Lexus, and the Nissan GTR out front. And so we are not far away from finding out what the damage is. Am I going to be able to jump ahead of some of those guys? Currently in 7th, this is a good return so far, given we started 13th. But I do believe that there's a few more positions in it. And look at that, we jumped to 5th with a possibility of 4th. And take a look at this shot, because you can see the 2 guys there. That's the GTR and the Lexus, which we were just on board with, coming out of the pit lane. So their consistency over the course of this race was not quite as good as mine and this Lexus. And now we can do our battling on the final lap. After working together, in a sense, for the majority of this race, we can now try and do battle and go for this 4th place, which would be a really solid return as we started towards the back of the pack. So coming through turn 4 into turn 5, the Lexus is going to turn in really late, brake far too late. We're going to get a much better exit side by side now down the hill towards turn 6. Bit of door bang in there, but we got the inside line. We get 4th place, but this isn't over just yet, because as we head up the hill, you can see just how close he is, and we have the very big braking zone into turn 10 to go. As we head onto the straight, he's right there. This is definitely within range of an overtake, and so I cover off the middle of the circuit. We're going to pull off the classic park it on the apex, give him 0 chance of a cutback, give him no chance to have an opportunity on the way out of the corner, and we have snatched away 4th place on the final lap. It's a case of not getting a penalty now for these last 2 corners where it's so easy to do that. But as we head through, we're feeling comfortable. This was a race where I just locked in and got the job done. 13th to 4th, got to be happy with that, and I very much am. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.